Hi there, friends. Hi, Richard.
What is on your head?
Our friend Dee Dee Walsh she got me a squirrel costume because of how I've been.
Let's talk about the definition of friend.
What? Was it something I said?
Yeah. That's a thing.
That's a thing. Look, okay. It's good to have fun while we're playing, while we're learning. Yeah.
It is Valentine's Day. And clearly, the squirrel is the familiar of Valentine's Day. I don't know. How did the squirrel fit into this?
I don't know. It's yeah. All right. Can I take this off? I have a DEVintersection hat here I'm going to put on.
You have your headphones on over top of it? That's hilarious.
Well, how else was I going to be able to hear what's going on?
Well, you look like a squirrel in the NFL now, so that's an improvement.
All right, boys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to snap the ball.
You take the acorn, go down and bury
it. Cut in when you get about 10 yards down, and I'll throw you the ball, okay? Break. No, actually, I look like a Time Life call center operator. My goodness. Oh, my goodness. This is... oh, my God. Give me a second here. How are you, Richard? I'm not going to be able to hear you for a minute while I take this off. 1 second.
Oh. Go ahead. Do it. Do what you got to do. I want to see how this thing comes off. There we go. Well, it turns out your hair is still blue underneath. Who knew? Ooh, nice hat.
There we go. That's a hat. DEVintersection. It's backwards because we're flipped, but... oh, I still have a squirrel down here. That's okay. We can deal with that.
Why are you wearing the squirrel pants? Like that's not necessary. I'm not wearing pants at all.
Doesn't one always wear pants?
No.
And
a podcaster. If I wanted to wear pants, I'd have a real job.
I'm surprised nobody. Well, okay, that's true. I can't disagree with that. But I'm surprised nobody in chat is asked to see the tail, because there is a huge inflatable tail that goes with this thing that I just couldn't put in.
Inflatable.
Yeah.
There's some pornography in here I don't want to know about.
No.
Yeah.
And yes, this is going nowhere fast. How are you, my friend? My goodness.
I'm fine. I was a guest on a podcast yesterday. That we recorded it yesterday. It's going to publish in a few weeks.
Okay.
Because I'm not a hypocrite, Like I ask a lot of people to come on podcasts, and so the least I can do when someone asks me is say yes. Although in this particular case, it was a Python podcast.
Oh, okay.
And I dabble a little in Python, but I don't know much about Python. So, but that's not what what Michael was asking about. He saw my Moonbase talk.
Oh.
And he thought his audience would like to sort of hear the whole Moonbase story. I think it's probably the last thing I'm going to do with the Moonbase geek out.
Okay.
Because it's been more than 2 years, right? The original Moonbase geek out was like March of 2017.
So
and then NASA called, right?
Okay, hang on. That's a story into itself. NASA called because they heard your podcast.
That's right. Which is weird. But let's be very clear. When you get an email from @nasa.gov, it's a hoax. I deleted the first couple. Like, don't be ridiculous. But no, it was real. Apparently that show had made the rounds, and they were asking me if I would do a presentation on it.
Okay.
I wondered if I knew anything about PowerPoint. PowerPoint at NASA. So and then the other part was like, it's your stuff. Why? It's your stuff.
Yes.
Like, no, we like how you tell a story. Okay, I'll tell you a story. So I went down, and that was fine. Like, that was a great day for me. I had a lot of fun. A few friends along. We got to tour the Ames facility outside of San Francisco, and I actually spent the night in a NASA facility. Like they like the hotel for scientists and astronauts and stuff. Like,
yeah.
That was very cool.
Ooh.
And then the Code Mania folks down in Auckland asked me if I would do it as a keynote.
Oh, that's very cool. Okay.
And that sort of led to the past 2 years, 2018 and 2019, just doing the moon base key. And if you go on YouTube now, there's several versions of it. I've rewritten it a couple of times because, the original version was kind of tuned for a podcast. Then I updated it for the NASA audience, which was an interesting challenge, engineers and scientists. Then I make it more for a geeky audience, more of an inspiration piece. But this interview I did with Talk Python to me yesterday, I think it's probably the last thing. Like after 2 years of sort of running around in circles on that subject, I'm good.
Well, I wonder. You mentioned how there's a bunch of recordings out there for it. I wonder if there's a place, if there's a position to put it to rest and say this is the end of that version of putting together a highly produced YouTube version of it.
Yeah, I wonder. The NDC the version I did in NDC Sydney last fall, which was one of the big rewrites of it, I'm the most pleased with.
Okay.
You're always your own worst critic.
Yeah.
But I very much retuned it. And of course, there's so much news coming around the moon these days that I think at one point in that particular version, I had literally listened to a NASA briefing that morning and added to the slide deck. So it was up to date as you could get.
Yeah, right. Now, the folks who actually
questions, just like what are people interested in? There's a very different thing from in front of 1,000 people sort of telling a narrative that you've carefully constructed based on all the things available. It's another thing to be interviewed by someone about it.
Oh, yeah. It is another thing altogether. I wonder, right, what were some of the questions that the folks who actually invent and do this stuff to get to space, what kinds of questions did they ask you?
Well, and the problem, of course, is you have a sort of schism, right? Because you have a group of engineers and you have a group of scientists. And they're very, very different from each other. In the end, the missions that NASA gets are science-based. So you have a set of hypotheses they want to validate.
Okay.
And you have engineers that are figuring out, given a budget and resource constraints, what can we actually do, right? So I think their interest was that we weren't in the podcast was for tech people. It wasn't necessarily for space people, although let's face it, most tech people are very spacey and like all of that.
Oh, yeah.
They pushed mostly on contrast between science fiction and science fact. So I think, Marvel movies don't do us any service with, things that are hard, right? Like the idea that that the spacecraft has to continuously rotate to keep the temperature stable across the entire hull. If you don't rotate it against the sun, it'll actually warp on the side that's being heated.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
It's all these little things, man. Like it's interesting. I had the good fortune in that particular presentation at NASA. Dan Andrews was there, and he's one of the lead engineers, and he actually has managed the chief engineer for a couple of missions to the moon, including the L-Cross mission. And the L-Cross mission was the mission that gave definitive proof of water on the moon, and they did it the simplest way possible by actually kicking up a cloud of water from the moon.
Yeah. Okay, and that's cool.
Yeah, and the way he did it was that he had an impactor that hit a continuously shaded part of a crater, of the Cerebus crater, and kicked it up, and then had put a set of sensors through that cloud to measure the volatiles, the water and so forth in it. The cool part, of course, is that the impactor was actually the second stage of an Atlas V Centaur booster.
Okay.
It took 2 years after that booster was part of the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter mission, which is in orbit around the moon right now, and has been for 10 years. But after they deployed that primary payload, this was a secondary payload, the L-Cross mission, and they had to condition that Centaur booster, which is the size of a school bus.
Yeah, it's not small.
They got to clean it out, essentially, remotely. So it flew back and forth between the Earth and the moon in an extended orbit for almost 2 years while it got cleaned, basically organized itself, heated itself enough to get all of the hydrogen and oxygen out of it, because it's a hydrolox engine system. Because if you want to go measure water on the moon, you really shouldn't be carrying water with you.
Yes, for sure.
it's all these little details, these subtleties of how they work. And then you think about this. They have so little fuel at that point. They need to hit this particular spot on a crater. They do the burn to target the crater from 400,000 kilometers away.
And everything is spinning.
Yes, and then it hits a spot a couple of miles across.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and 6 minutes later, the sensor pan array that actually measures the water hits too. So it's like the way they say it is it lands with some vigor.
Some vigor.
Yeah, yes, but it plowed into the moon hard enough to kick up this spray, and it turned out that spray was 25% water.
Wow.
But other volatiles too, nitroxes and halides and things. It was really an interesting set of compounds that it just sort of spoke to. There's stuff we just don't understand about the moon and why there's a case for going back.
Absolutely. It's tremendous.
Anyway,
it really is.
I spent an hour and a half talking to Michael Kennedy on Talk Python to me. It's not a very Python-y show. I mean, I did admit that when I do code Python, I do it in VS Code because who's got time for PyTorch? But beyond that, he just asked me questions about SpaceX and Blue Origin and different rocket operations and how we would actually function on the moon for an extended period of time.
Oh, very cool stuff, man. That is so cool. My goodness, there are so many cool things that are happening here that we want to talk to, we want to get into, and we've got our friend Kendra Havens joining us in a few minutes. And she specializes not Visual Studio Code, but full Visual Studio. You can work with Python in there, but specifically she's working on productive tools for .NET developers.
Yeah, well, and she is the productivity goddess. I was with her at a conference last fall in Warsaw, Poland, and she did this amazing talk, just tore it up. And I think she was in you know how after you finish your session, you get a few people rush the stage and so forth. And if it takes a little too long, you kind of got to go out of the room so the next person gets set up.
Yeah.
So she was in such a big huddle. They eventually, got her to move out of the room. I think she stayed in a huddle outside of the room for 2 hours.
Holy crow.
Like I saw her get out of the room. It's like, oh, good. Next person get going. Da-da-da-da-da. I go off, do some things. I come back. She's still in the huddle. I go, get some lunch, come back, still in the huddle. Like just all the time in the world to answer every question you could think of. And they had questions.
I'm sure, right? She's very, very polite, very outgoing, and wants to make sure that not just customers know what's happening, what's doing well, that the developers feel good about how they use their tools, but also get the feedback from folks and open to the feedback of, hey, this isn't working the way I expected it to.
Yeah.
And handles it with grace and like, okay, no problem. We'll work on that.
She's also a new generation of Microsoft employee that has always sort of been in the open source world too, and just has a different view of how software development should be done.
Yeah.
And is helping to make Visual Studio reflect that.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting to just see this, a different generation of engineer reinventing these products.
Oh my gosh, yes. It really speaks towards how much Microsoft has changed, not just culturally, but different people, different approaches that have completely different concepts of how we should be writing code, how we should be as developers.
Yeah, well, and let's face it, we're living in a different world, right? Like I'm immersed in the writing of the history of .NET, and part of that narrative is this sort of, it's not just we made the source code open, it's the methodology of developing source in the open.
Yeah.
Right? That it is a very different culture, not just a different set of tools.
The steps that we're talking about, getting there, making sure that all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, the lawyers are all happy. It's not trivial.
Well, yeah, you sort of presume some control over source code when it's purely internal, but when you're taking contributions from the outside world, when you're building in the open, you have to do a whole other class of checking. But I also think the joke is there's this, you work on the team, right?
Oh yeah.
There's no secret anymore. You want to know what the next version of .NET looks like? Just hang out for the calls. They're there.
They're there.
It's almost a full-time job to keep up with those calls,
Yes.
because basically everybody that's on that call, that is literally their job. But you can see every new feature being developed more or less in real time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Kendra's in kind of that area, right? Visual Studio kind of off to the side, not completely transparent, but they're showing you what's coming in the next couple previews.
Sure. Well, let's face it, Visual Studio is not an open source project.
Yeah.
Right. Like Studio itself. And I don't know that it ever could be. Like there's all this legacy code that, its origins are somewhat more complex, and it's got other licensing models and things around it. When you think about .NET Core and C# and so forth, I mean, the only way they got those things to be fully open source was they rewrote them.
Yeah. To get away from all the lawyers and issues and whatnot.
It's insanely complicated. I saw a call on the news recently saying they should open source Windows 7. It's like, do you think it's a button? Like, if we just push this button, Windows 7 will be open source. Like, it's just much more complicated than that.
Even if it was open source, let's just say they could do that. What would you do?
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to...
Just think about what it takes to build Windows.
Yeah.
We did a show on .NET Rocks a while back talking to the guys who actually migrated the source code of Windows to Git, not GitHub, Git.
Yes.
It's 300 gigabytes.
You want to download this?
Yeah. Well, oddly enough, they had to add a bunch of features to Git, which they did freely to be able to. Because normally, if you take a fork, you just DDoS your machine, right?
Right. The amount of content that gets downloaded is insane.
And so they've made a version now when you run in the large volume mode where it only is pulling down the bits you're actually working on, right? Like it totally makes sense that that's what you have to do. But just think about the build process. Like, what does it take to building operating systems in general? Like, not a whole lot
trivial.
of fun. Done some Linux builds and things. Like, it's not a small thing. This is a beast, and it's a beast with decades worth of source code in it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not that simple. Nothing is.
Mm-hmm. It's yeah. Hey, there's our friend Fuel Snable chiming in. Relicensing of closed source components to open source is super simple. Doing the relicensing the actual relicensing, sure, but the lawyers and the folks that own parts of that along the way, that's where you need to get all the sign-off stuff. That is not trivial.
Machines under control, right? You've maybe contracted things out, and there may have been license restrictions on it. Like, and the biggest thing is actually knowing the origins of all the code in something that's several decades old.
Yeah,
that people have retired, people have died. Like, what is the state of all this code? Do you have clear ownership of it all? Because it gets complicated.
Yeah. The folks who have that mentality that Fuel Snable is describing, right? Fuel Snable is saying that's the mentality that folks have, is that this is easy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're missing the boat here.
Yeah, it's just never that simple. And it's an interesting part of the book that I'm working on right now that is talking about in that transition period where they had libraries like Entity Framework that started out as closed sourced IP protected code, and then actually they transformed it into open source code. And the fact that they achieved that, and it was a tremendous amount of work, was kind of a lightning rod within Microsoft.
Yes.
That it was a huge impact to Microsoft that was even possible.
You know what? Our guest is sitting there in chat. She's helping answering questions. I think we should add her.
Let's bring her in. What the heck?
This could be a thing. Oh my goodness. Who knew? Hello?
Is Kendra there? Can Kendra come out to play?
We're looking for Kendra. I clicked the button. It says calling still. Let's see.
Do.
Accepted the call, but okay. So we need you to, right? We need camera and speakers. Microphones. It still looks like it's calling. What is that? What are you doing to me here, Skype?
I did email you her regular Skype address, right?
Yes, the personal address.
As opposed to the S4B.
Yes.
Because Skype for Business is not Skype.
No, and that's something that we've run into a couple times here with Skype and trying to bring folks in to talk on a stream is when you try and, even though Skype and Skype for Business are supposed to be able to connect, they don't really.
Yeah, I've done that enough times to know it's way harder than you think.
It is.
Like open source, only different.
Yeah. Let's see if I can. Oh. Yeah, there we go.
Hey guys. Sorry, that took forever.
Not a problem. Look at this. We're going to get you loaded into the box here. And back over. Look at this. Look at this. As I live and breathe. There's Kendra Havens.
We did it.
We did it. So
this way.
Yeah. Mirror images are fun.
So how's it going, my friend? So good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
So good to be here.
Now.
Yeah, doing good. 3-day weekend ahead of us.
Oh my gosh. Don't believe it. Here in the States, at least.
No, we're doing it in Canada too. Up here in British Columbia, at least, we call it Family Day. Because we wouldn't have a President's Day. That would be weird.
The irony that in Canada they call it Family Day.
Yeah. Well, we actually didn't have a February holiday. It's a relatively recent invention.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, we have one now, and I intend to do exactly nothing.
Well done, sir. So,
yeah.
Kendra, my goodness, we introduced you as the program manager who's leading a bit of that productivity, developer tools, productivity feature set that's happening in Visual Studio. Can you give a quick intro to for folks who might not know who you are?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that. I should definitely call out Mika Dumont, fully owns the productivity space now. I still own testing experience in Visual Studio. And I'm working on a lot of Visual Studio Online stuff and lighting up .NET scenarios in Visual Studio, which I can talk about because we did technically talk about it at Ignite. So.
Ooh. Okay.
Just I don't know.
Yeah. Visual Studio Online. Ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
With Nick Molnar already on it, I'm pretty sure people know about it, or at least more people should know about it anyway.
Yeah, he showed a lot of Visual Studio Code stuff, but lighting up in Visual Studio Client is going to be sick. We haven't released public previews or anything yet, but it'll be really cool. It's going to be big.
Yeah, no, it's like this idea of sort of for years doing development work, I was simply maintaining VMs for each customer of the studio configuration for their project. Is to keep them in isolation from each other. And this idea that is much simpler with VSO is really exciting to me.
Yeah. It's been really interesting being a part of such a big effort. There's so much, re-architecture when half of Visual Studio is running on a server and half is running on the client, and what parts we're getting out and what interfaces we need to create, and what things don't light up that we thought would because we thought the code depended on something else, but we didn't actually understand. It's been fascinating.
Understand your own product? How could such a thing have happened?
Okay. .NET just today turned 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Visual Studio is even older than that. I know it had its 20th birthday a while back. That's a lot of code.
7, right? With the first version of Studio. So
can we
as Jeff would say, oh yeah.
No, can we poke into that concept of separating out the features? Because I feel like this is something that, not to oversimplify, but folks who are web developers have kind of felt and been used to, right? Because when you build a web application, you've got that server side part and they have the user interface part that runs in the browser. So you end up with this two-way communication across HTTP and your business logic primarily runs on the server and user interface runs in the browser. Is that oversimplifying, but is that kind of how some of these things in Visual Studio Online work?
No, I think that's a good way to put it. Sort of thinking as, of course, the Visual Studio Client will be way more powerful than what happens in a web browser. But we're hoping to put most of the work in the cloud.
Yeah.
Use that cloud compute, and yeah, it'll be pretty cool.
That's one way to get compile times down.
Yep. Rewrite your code? No, just throw more CPU at it. It'll be fine.
Here's a story from, I've generally avoided telling the story, but it's long ago enough now that it's probably all right. It was one of the architects of Visual Studio. It was Rico Mariani. I don't think he's with the company anymore. And we did an interview with him. This is like in the 2010 timeframe, where we were really having performance problems with Studio. No two ways about it. Like that was when they first added WPF, the first added 64-bit support. Like there was a lot of stuff going on. First versions of F#, like it was a lot. And we were asking, when are you going to make a 64-bit version of Studio?
Yeah, that's been a big question.
Which is part of that grand delusion that if it's 64-bit, it will be faster, and it's simply not true, right? And Rico was on the show. If you go listen to the show, it's very polite, right? He's just saying, listen, it's not going to do what you want it to do. More memory is not the issue. Like we've got to deal with these other things, and we'll make it better. But as soon as the recorders were turned off, he went on a true tear.
Oh boy!
And he said, "Look, they're already using too much memory. Why would I give them more?"
Oh my gosh!
Think good would come of that.
It's just an excuse to write. Oh my god!
Consume more memory. It's like you're struggling to stay in 4 gigs. Why would giving you more make it better?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Our friends here in the chat room were chiming in that Coding Gorilla says, I don't remember which version of Visual Studio I started with, just that it came on 187 floppy disks. And Fuel Snable, of course, has to finish by saying, and disk 124 didn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my god.
Okay, so
I think Studio ever came on floppies. I think it was only ever on CD and DVD media. The biggest collection of discs I ever had was like Office 4, which was like 63.5-inch floppies, and at least 2 of them were always broken, right? Like that was.
But when we're in the cloud, the idea is then we have a smaller payload that we have to install and manage, right? Less to do, but we've got that tremendous Visual Studio tooling that, okay, we don't mind downloading 1.5 gigs or 2 gigs to run. So what are some of the cool things that we should be looking forward to here, right? I'm a big fan of running that Test Explorer, all the cool things that we can do with that, and it continues to grow and advance. My gosh, we just finished a stream over on my channel where we were unit testing Blazor components with the Test Explorer. There's a lot of cool things that have been happening in there, haven't there?
Yeah. So running tests there's actually already a lot of processes and analysis that we could be doing, but we don't, because we don't want to be constantly compiling and rerunning and building in the background. One example is like live unit testing.
Yeah.
Right now we have a lot of rules about how you can like restrict and exclude tests and that kind of thing of what actually runs every time you make a code change. And even then, it's only running the tests that are impacted by that code change, but it's still, every keystroke, it's doing some kind of analysis. So there's some scenarios where you can use that, but when you're on a laptop on a plane or something like that, it's going to interrupt that kind of analysis. There's a bunch of static analysis that we could be doing constantly, but it uses up battery life, so we don't. On a cloud environment, it's not even going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Not even going to think about it.
I had Danny Simmons on the show recently talking about the using of machine learning to understand the code you're writing and to sort of help you with refactoring moves, this sort of extension of IntelliCode.
Yeah, that's been interesting. That's repeated edits, refactoring. It isn't aware of the compiler, which I didn't realize until I dug into it with Mark Wilson Thomas.
Wow.
So it actually uses, we released a blog post. I think Amanda Silver actually wrote a blog post from like 2018 about, and she links to some of the research in prose that they use and flash fill of Excel, which is actually really funny because Amanda Silver did work quite a lot on making Excel more accessible to like non-developers becoming slowly developers as they write amazing VBA scripts. Anyway, she's so cool.
I was on that bandwagon. That's how I started at development. I was writing VBA script for Excel and Access, and I eventually said, let me do this with like VB6.
Well, also you realize that's how you ruin your job, right? As soon as you got good at VBA stuff, it's like whatever you were doing, forget it. This is what you're doing from now on.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
So just to go back to the IntelliCode thing, so they are using similar to the flash fill algorithm. So it is a very basic like text analysis of something that you've done repeatedly, but it is aware of like parameters and variables within that scope and being able to adapt to them. So I want to make it smarter, but I'm not sure how to, I'm not sure how.
So part of me is struck by when I do a .NET watch, and I feel like .NET watch test is the same as the live unit testing. It's a very similar experience where something changed, go recompile a little bit and rerun my tests.
I mean, it's less smart, but
yeah, .NET watch test is very less smart, right? Is the live unit testing, is that only compiling just the things that have changed and somehow swapping just those pieces out? What is that? It feels a lot smarter, and I get a lot faster response from that than .NET watch test.
Mm-hmm. So live unit testing is faster than .NET watch because .NET watch doesn't actually know only the tests that were changed, and it's rebuilding everything, like your entire project. And live unit testing is only rebuilding the project, the binaries that have been affected by the code change. So it's only going to be the single project you work in, not like the project and all of its dependencies. So it's a bit smarter. I do love that .NET Watch is already available in like VS Code, and you can hook it up with coverlet and coverage gutters. Scott Hanselman has done that demo in that blog post a while back. That was really cool. So I like that you can get kind of live unit testing functionality, even if it's not quite as efficient as what we offer in Visual Studio Enterprise.
Oh, absolutely, right? You got to step up and pay if you want to get the cream of the crop features.
Yeah.
So
I still need to eat, so
we need to make sure that Kendra gets paid.
These memes don't make themselves.
So I'm just on the horizon, like thinking, here we are in the 2020s, the future is here, and how much, as we tie the cloud into this and we can have all these compute resources available to us, how smart could an analysis tool get? Could it start to recognize, hey, you're coding a singleton pattern here. Let me make sure you stay within the boundaries of that.
I think there's no limit. That's why we rewrote Roslyn, right? To make the syntactic tree and semantic model available so you can actually, any kind of pattern that the compiler can see. So right now, Flashfill is looking at just text edits and repeated stuff. We don't have anything that look at repeated refactorings that you've actually triggered.
Right.
We do reorder what refactorings are offered based on like overall popular internal telemetry and what we think is most common for most cases, but we don't do it. IntelliCode's amazing because it does it on an individual basis or even a team basis if you've trained a custom model over your code base. So there is a lot more specificity that we could add. It's just a matter of what is most important, what we can get funded, what customers are most asking for.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's any customer asking for this capability per se.
Yeah.
And rather than, because it's like, how would you think of this?
I'm making the transition from, have you read Loonshots by Bacall?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. In the book, they talk about P-shots versus S-shots. S-shots are the slow incremental changes that like basically your customers are begging for, and the product slowly improves. P-shots are the moonshot stuff that nobody sees coming, that no one was asking for, and you just need to take all of your resources and go and build that one thing based on like a vision. And I'm getting more used. I've been in the S curve for a really long time, like making slow refactoring improvements, adding more and more with every release. And looking at the next P shots coming up, I think like Visual Studio Online is a big one.
Yeah.
But
that's still a refactoring, right? What happens when we break apart this tool that's only running on a workstation and do some things in the cloud, some things locally? Like, what are the patterns that emerge from that?
Mm-hmm.
But I also think, you've been in this long enough now, making those gradual improvements. I think you start to see the gestalt, like there's a direction we're going here. And we would do it at piecemeal, and maybe there's a jump to be made.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for now. We've got some things that are interesting on the plates, but nothing that we have funded.
Right.
Sometimes, I don't know, like even just talking to my engineering manager about it, he was like, we can't, I mean, maybe we can talk about that in like August this year.
Yeah. Current commitments first.
I think it's easier to fund S shots because you can see the demand. You've got that customer feedback.
It's
very simple to get that done, where a P shot is making a bet.
Mm-hmm. I didn't think the last 3 years of my life I would ever say is like, yeah, that was the easy approach to product development.
Wow.
It's been a lot. Talking with hundreds of customers and all that.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
It can
interesting though.
Hard.
Huh?
It can be harder.
Yep. You can take bigger bets. You can take bigger risks for sure.
And there lies the thing, which is like, how many times have we seen, I always use the comparison of the iPhone to the Newton, both made by Apple and both sort of the same concept, just one was too early. What if you have a vision that it's just not going to manifest well enough? You're going to make a Newton, not an iPhone.
Hitting the market too early is the same as failure.
Basically, yeah.
John Montgomery told me that.
Yeah. Well,
we learned that the hard way.
Many times.
And digging through the history of .NET, I was, looking at the original specifications for Azure in 2009, right, with the app role. I'm thinking, this is serverless in 2009, and nobody wanted it.
Yeah.
We built a few prototype apps, but I remember at a point in making .NET Rocks episodes around Azure, like, until you bring me an app in the field, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Like, I don't need to see another demo of WebRoll and WebRoll ever again.
Are they even still active? Can you still do that on Azure?
I think they're winding them down. I don't think they want to break anything. But then what's hilarious, of course, is then Guthrie comes along in 2011. What does he give us? IIS.
Yeah.
Azure websites. It's like, here, take your website, stick it in the cloud. You'll be fine. That's what we wanted. That's what we understood.
Effectively hosting. Just move the hosting. Once again, moving the back-end service from here to there.
Over there.
Yeah.
The cloudification of Studio.
Yep. That's what we're shooting for. And it's actually not the first time we've tried.
Yeah.
So we're hoping now is the time to strike as well.
I can't remember who said that. It was a line about open sourcing .NET. It's like, well, this is the third try. Maybe this one will take.
Yep. The three deaths of good product development. A good idea has to die 3 times before
it's really a good idea.
It changes the world.
Yeah. That's interesting. So that's what's happened here. Who said that? Where's that quote from, Kendra?
That was also from it was outlined in the Loon Shots book.
Right.
They talked about like cholesterol medicine. They initially tested it on like rats instead of chickens, and rats have no bad cholesterol. They only have good cholesterol, so it was completely ineffective.
Right.
But then the researcher was like, his buddy had a bunch of hens that they had done with other testing, and he was like, now we're going to eat them. And he's like, wait, one more test. And they tried it on hens because hens make eggs, and those have really high cholesterol.
Right.
And then the drug was super effective. And so they're like, okay, maybe we should have used other animals, and they tried it on other stuff. We almost didn't get it. Millions of people around the world take that drug now.
Yeah.
Unreal.
For better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe they should also make healthier eating choices.
There is that.
Simple answers. What is this?
What?
Come on. We are developers. We do nothing if not over-engineer things many times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and now you're going to walk into the cholesterol controversy, and who wants to do that?
No.
Wait, there's a controversy? Okay. I'm out of... I didn't mean to bring up something spicy.
It's not that spicy. It's not like...
Play man for this stuff, Kendra, honestly.
This is why people come to the live stream. Anything could happen.
Absolutely.
Anything could happen.
An episode of Hot Ones is going to break out any minute now. We're just going to have Buffalo Wild Wings delivered to all three of our studios here, and we're just going to start eating chicken wings and interviewing.
But go wrong.
So there's been a couple questions coming up in the chat room about different things, different helpful analysis, different recommendations that Visual Studio is able to do to encourage folks to write better software. We have the ability to project to your screen, Kendra. If there's anything around some of those tools, some of those new features that have been going on that you might want to share to show how Visual Studio helps us write better code.
Definitely. How? Can you see my screen yet?
It'll be...
I close out of Outlook. Don't want...
It's okay. We can see the emails from Scott Hunter. Nobody will mind.
Kendra, why are you doing the thing? Let's see. Share screen. Anything?
There we go. And I'll put our cameras down the right side of your screen. You can close and move that Skype window in the corner. There we go. Now everybody can see your Visual Studio.
Very good.
Okay. So the question was, how can Visual Studio improve code quality through better analysis and kind of offerings like that? So what I actually want to introduce folks to is we did add a new property page that is code analysis, and it actually recommends to install the FX Cop Analyzer package. So we don't install this by default because it actually gives so much analysis that we don't want it, especially for like a new user, being totally overwhelmed.
Right.
Because some of these analyzers are just it's our advice. It's not needed to make your program compile, but it is what we would recommend. So you can kind of get a look at everything that's included in this. It's like you can get Humanizer and C# specific analyzers and .NET Framework specific analyzers, and that's pretty cool. Let me see.
So I actually had somebody for the open source project that I'm working on recommend that we turn on the FX Cop analyzers, but then there comes the tuning of the analyzers. Which ones do I actually want to use, right? You're kind of heading towards that topic of, well, do you really want to turn everything on as an error or as a warning?
Yeah. So let's see. I am getting one now. There we go. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, sorry. It just hadn't loaded yet. Yeah, so as far as what analyzers you want to use and not, it is actually really easy to customize. So if you have a ton of ones appearing in your project, and I won't go through the list of, gosh, I think there's at least 50 analyzers in here.
50?
I won't go through, yeah, I won't go through that list. We only have one triggered on this project. I'm trying to think of what else we could do. I'm actually surprised there used to be an analyzers node underneath here. I am using a preview version. I'm trying to figure out, maybe we took it out. So we wanted all of those to stay in editor config. Anyway. So if you find any that are really noisy, it's really easy to configure and suppress analyzers. So all you need to do is go to the little light bulb that appears next to the squiggle on the same line. And so this is warning me that I'm implementing iSerializable, but I'm not marking the class with a serializable attribute. And you can go ahead and suppress them in a few different ways and configure the severity. So if I wanted this to appear silently, I could enter that, and the green squiggle will disappear. And if I go into my editor config and I scroll to the bottom, you can see that. There we go. the severity of the iSerializable attribute is now silent.
So is that specific to the project then?
Sorry?
That's specific to the project?
It's not when it depends on where your editor config lives.
Okay.
So my editor config right here, this is the file that contains all of your code style rules and your severities for like third-party analyzers and all of these code style configuration that Visual Studio can learn from. It's a file format, which means it travels around at the root of your solution.
Right.
And if you have it in the root, it will apply to everything in that like folder directory. It's directory based.
Okay.
So if I had an editor config that was nested inside of my alert project, it actually wouldn't, it'd only be applying to the stuff within that alert file.
That's cool.
So, yeah, my editor config here, it has the root true attribute. So once it finds, so basically the code formatter looks at like an individual file, and then it walks up your directory until it finds a root editor config, and it keeps walking up until it thinks it's found all editor config parents. So putting in root at your at the solution level will make sure it stops there. So it'll say this is the highest editor config you're going to find on my computer. Otherwise, we will walk all the way up to your C drive looking for an editor config. Yeah.
But then within each of these folders, additional editor config overrides the root.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can and you can have editor configs that like don't have certain rules or only have a few rules. So they only differ in those. And for anything that isn't listed in the sub editor config, it'll just take whatever the parent decided.
And I noticed the analyzers branch appeared there under dependencies as you went through for the alert project.
Oh, there it is. Oh, so it was loading. Oh, good. That's what I was looking for and trying to act really cool about it. Okay, I was like, why did
look
did
at all
we
those
take that
rules.
out?
Here, let me hide our cameras so you can see that there.
Tons and tons of rules.
Tons.
So you can go through and set the severity from the Solution Explorer as well. Yeah.
Now, a couple comments from the chat room I want to highlight. Elliot Brand says, that's nice. I've found myself adding configure await true at times just to silence the warnings. I completely agree. Being able to actually silence them inside a configuration is nice. Which leads to Trent Seven's comment. I like that we're going back to that ini configuration file style.
The INI files from Windows directory. Turns out the format wasn't wrong. Putting it in the Windows folder was what was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually chose editor config. It existed outside of the .NET ecosystem, so editor config was becoming like a standard for a lot of different languages to document code style. And so they had solved a lot of problems like the inheritance and everything, and all we needed to do was just mimic that in Visual Studio and make sure it all applied.
Adopt, enhance it, add in the features that we needed, but still be able to use those other things that other editors had. Really great stuff.
Oh, yeah. Was there any more we wanted to dig in here, or should I?
Well, look at this. There's a couple folks. There's a couple folks in the chat room that are saying, "Oh, we really like TOML, TOML." Right, the TOML format. Be great if we had. See,
an analyzer that applies it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think when you start saying, "Oh, I want this other configuration format because I don't like that one," come on, just use the one that the developer started using. When we start fighting over configuration file formats like this, I don't think it's productive to move technology forward. That's just me.
Yeah, we do have to be aware of maybe making it more difficult for people to switch contexts. So when a certain file has like a very, very opinionated coding, and you don't want to get into a state of like you feel like you're fighting with your compiler.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, we know that most people are switching across a lot of repositories. That's actually also another advocate for editor config, we thought code style could be decided by your IDE. So we had all of this stuff in tools options that decided code style, and it was all IDE specific. So all of these settings control what is in just your IDE and not your teammate's IDE, and it's the same for all of the repositories that you're working in. We thought that's how people were going to work, and it ends up we were really wrong. A lot of people work across different repositories and different teams, and they all have different code styles, and it shouldn't be decided on an individual basis.
Yeah, or IDE basis anyway.
Yeah. One cool thing is, though, that actually Michaela and I were talking about this as we prepared for the Visual Studio for Mac refresh event. That'll be not this Monday, but next Monday.
That's right.
We were talking about how tabs versus spaces, dun dun dun. Tabs is actually winning out because it's way more accessible.
Yes.
If you want to be accessible, if you want your code repository to be able to look usable to all kinds of people who want to contribute, you're going to be wanting to use tabs. So that's the reason that your IDE rules should actually sometimes overrule editor config, at least for how things look on a local machine. So these different levels of customization, this is what we're learning as we go.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
So there's a comment here about snippets in Visual Studio from the chat room. Marcus, voice programmer, was asking about Visual Studio snippets. He feels like they could do with a little bit of an overhaul, being able to enter in a single word or phrase and have it bring back a list of things that match. But there's a bit of power already there around stuff like that, isn't there?
There is. I totally agree, though. We could do so much more. You can actually create custom snippets. I don't know if what I'm showing right now is actually, people are like, whoa, I've never seen that in my life. Here, I'll make this smaller. And so the keyboard shortcut is Control-KX, and that opens this little snippet window. You can also, you all probably heard Scott Hanselman say, just type anything and then hit tab. Not anything. I mean, he doesn't say that, but then you can tab through what everything is, well, Kendra's property or whatever, and create things. So you can do maybe inside of here, I could do something like 4. And then, so you can see in IntelliSense these little these are all snippets. This is our little snippet icon. So if I hit tab while that's selected, it'll just insert a for loop. And there's tons of those. So if you hit Control-KX, that's how you can kind of
you can find
explore what we have. We have a constructor. This is a while. Yeah, oh no, console write line. Console write line. That's so useful. CW tab. Got it. And your cursor's in the right place and everything. What I'm actually curious if people are posting what they would like to see.
So here, let me queue up a couple of the comments from folks in the chat room. So Marcus continued with, it should be it should also be able to open a screen to add new snippets and edit existing ones without having to leave your IDE.
That'd be cool. So one thing we do have, you can create custom snippets in Visual Studio. We have walkthroughs for how to create custom code snippets, but what I don't like is you have to do some weird XML editing and stuff. And you should just be able to highlight text and say this is a snippet now, deal with it.
Yeah, figure it out.
And we should insert what language you're in and all of that stuff for you, all of the metadata that you need, and how you specify what. I think you probably saw that I could specify different variables to see how my highlighting is currently at string, and if I hit tab, it'll go to the next thing that I need to name in here. So you can specify all of that in this kind of complicated XML joy
that
we have. And oh gosh, I would love to improve this.
Yeah, Stelzy even chimes in here saying that the UI for creating snippets without an extension, it's not very nice. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to remember.
But this is one of those key things that really separates Visual Studio, being able to automatically generate how much code with minimal keystrokes that you're repeatedly doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man, I don't even remember where we keep all of our snippet code. Somewhere weird.
There was, because I remember loading up snippet files, adding, right, how you add them into Visual Studio. I forget exactly where it is, but
yeah,
you
I
have
know
to
you
parse
can
and load
create
it up.
you can create snippet folders, code snippets manager, tools code snippets manager that we for some reason have not indexed in Control Q.
That's weird.
Tool. Oh, there it is. Oh, that's so weird. I thought all of our menu commands were captured. I'm going to file
look at
this
that.
bug, everyone. Let me write this down. What the?
Yeah, get that one in.
Look at that.
All
We
right.
helped find a bug. Yay!
How we get to the code snippets manager. That's so weird. I thought everything within all of our menu context
We're
menu
indexed.
context should be indexed in Control Q. That's what I've been telling people. Visual Studio, don't make me a liar. Come on.
Somebody's going to get a ticket they're going to have to handle now.
I'm gonna ticket the crap out of this team. No, it's actually probably my team. Yeah, so this is how you can add them now. Do you have to grab a dot snippet or something that you saved? Yeah, it has to be like a dot snippet file format. What is all this?
Right?
And it's so powerful and helpful at your fingertips when you discover it. And yeah, we'll figure it out.
Hey, gosh, if only we had a clip of this video that we could attach to that ticket. Chat room, can you help us out?
Yeah.
Actually, we can actually cut a Twitch clip here to hand along for you there.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
So fancy. We're living in the future.
Oh my gosh, we do. Now, just like many other Visual Studio features, do snippets also work in Visual Studio Code?
I don't believe so.
Yeah. I didn't think so either. But I know there's similar features in Visual Studio Code, and we've seen some of our friends. I'm thinking of our friend John Papa has written a series of snippets for Angular work in Visual Studio Code.
Oh, that's so cool. How does he apply them then?
It's an extension for Visual Studio Code.
Oh, okay. Well, everything in Visual Studio Code is an extension.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't realize we had that. That's really cool. We were talking, Michaela and I were talking about VS for Mac and how much we love snippets. And we were like, man, does Visual Studio Code not have this? We don't know. Okay.
But okay, so for that conversation with Michaela, can we take our Visual Studio 2019 snippets over to Visual Studio for Mac?
I'm pretty sure a lot of them are already loaded in. Ooh, now I don't feel confident saying that without Michaela here to nod at me. I'll have to look it up. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm slowly learning about all of the features that Visual Studio for Mac has, a lot of which I wanted in Visual Studio for a long time.
It's funny, Richard, we heard a very similar comment from Leslie when we spoke to her on Wednesday about how, my gosh, even as the folks who help build Visual Studio, there is so many features here that we don't spend enough time learning about.
Well, it's one thing to build stuff, to actually see everything else that's being used. Although I'm kind of grateful, because if you could actually keep all that orderly, then it's all of us who are wondering, why can't we figure everything out that's in Studio? So the fact that the team itself can't keep track of it all, that's a relief.
Again, we've built a lot of really cool stuff over 10 and 20 years for Xamarin Studio and all that. It's hard to keep track of.
Yeah, and they were built by different teams at different times. But, I mean, a number of times, and I'm used to this from you, Kendra, you show me something in Studio, I'm like, I didn't know it could do that.
Yeah, that's why I love watching Leslie's talks. Yeah. There's always someone in the audience where you can tell they've been using this debugger for 10 years and they had no idea. A lot of times they'll tell you and everything, but the sheer amount of jaw dropping in her talks is super fun.
Yeah, she got a jaw drop on our stream on Wednesday.
Yes.
If you control
surprise
the
me.
output window, it's a search. It was Hugo Dahl who knew it was there. She's like, there's no way to search in the output window. And Hugo Dahl's like, click on in the window and hit Control F. There's a search.
Yep. Yep. I've used that a lot.
Oh.
I've actually used it a lot to try to figure out what telemetry, what's being caught, because every event, at least for internal users, every event like has a bunch of stuff in it. If I'm trying to figure out what command was hit, let's see if what did I do recently?
Too much stuff in the output window. That's inevitable.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know why it has like entire solution versus current window. It doesn't make any sense, but
because it's the same find from above.
Yep.
All the things.
Trent7 in the chat room is saying you have the underestimated quote of the day that everything in Visual Studio Code is an extension. Yeah, that's.
Well, you were like, oh, but it's an extension, but it's like, without extensions, Visual Studio Code is just a basic text editor, which is why it's so great.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it's so easy to write extensions for, because it's some simple, beautiful TypeScript. Gosh, I can't wait to write more. I need to get into that. I'm focused on Visual Studio for Mac so much, I haven't actually developed an extension for VS Code, and I feel like I gotta get with all the cool kids. Bowden rolls up into my live stream on the .NET like community stand-up and is showing me all this remote extension stuff, and I was like, whoa, no, I need this.
I want more of that.
Whoa, yeah.
But Kendra, when I sit in one of your sessions and you start showing some of the cool productivity things around testing, around the analyzers, around how we can make our code easier for folks to contribute so they start following those good practices, I get that same holy crow moment from, right? Because as somebody who's building projects, right, on Twitch and in GitHub, I want people to be able to pick up and, without really having to read too much of that contributing statement, being forced into the pit of success here. There's some really great stuff you've got.
Well, thank you. I certainly think so. I think one that always gets me is multi-cursor. So Control-Alt. Whenever I show this, people are like, what? So you can type in multiple places at once in Visual Studio. And you can even navigate. So I can use arrow keys to like hop lines.
And it's
moving all of my cursors up. So now I'm in like get over here.
Okay, I didn't know that one.
What?
Yeah. Well, I actually had a bug filed. Someone was like, hey, you don't have like arrow keys working like you did in like Visual Studio Code actually also has multi-cursor and it works with arrow keys. And they filed a bug that it didn't work in Visual Studio. And I was like, yeah, that's a cool feature. We should do that. But then when I tried it, it did work.
Oh.
So something.
I'm also a big fan of the Alt and drag down and drawing a box and being able to edit.
Yeah. Super cool. Alt. Oh, yeah. Control Alt. Wait, no.
It's just Alt and drag.
That's right.
Yeah, right? That's like, okay. That's a thing.
Yeah. Especially for something particularly like comments, like you have declarations all in a row, and it's pretty sweet. And I can multi-select and do stuff.
I remember.
So cool.
I remember when a cursor was sovereign. There was only one, but now we have cursors.
Oh, wait! I just figured out what his bug was. The Alt and drag, that doesn't work with the arrow keys.
Ah.
See?
Oh
my gosh. Okay, I will actually file that bug. I'm so glad. See, sometimes I just didn't figure it out.
Right. Could not reproduce.
Yeah.
Chat room says...
Which unfortunately could not reproduce sounds so impersonal, but it is so much the state of things. Like, it's honest mistakes, guys.
It happens. Yeah. Fuel Snable in the chat room says column selection rocks in Visual Studio. It's one of those little things, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me see here. Magic multi-line edit. Get some clips around this. Absolutely. We need to get some clips of the videos so that Kendra can share that and have some of those references later.
I should tweet more about multi-cursor.
Chris Jones in the chat room references and says that one of our friends, MVP, the bald-bearded builder, has a Visual Studio Code extension they wrote that allows Twitch chat to change his Visual Studio color theme. so folks can troll and change the way it looks.
That's
Oh my
not
gosh.
distracting at all.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
You can get really evil with that. Oh, wait, how much configuration do they have over the theme? Is it just the major theme?
Just the colors.
Well, but you can.
And he's got a bunch
You
of them
can change-
predefined.
So you can change so much of your colors. You can be really evil and change like, oh gosh, I don't even know. Like all of your user methods to be like a custom white, so it blends in with the background and you can't read your code.
Right.
How like you shouldn't do this,
no,
but
no.
we've enabled you to do anything with colors and stuff. That's why there's so many extensions for Visual Studio about custom color themes.
So his themes that he has, they're all predefined. So you can just select from his list of however many, a dozen or two, that are already out there.
Oh shoot. I don't want to reset that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Now, okay, I'm Richard, can I be a little selfish for a minute?
Yeah, go, buddy.
Jumping
you
into
got.
this dialogue, the font change dialogue is something that I've tried to automate a little bit. And I've actually, I have macros on my Stream Deck, so I can key in the search for and jump right into this. And even then, that search dialogue doesn't return quickly right away when you just type the word change font.
Mhm.
Well, there's no search dialogue within this. We have this huge list of like, hey, let's
Yes.
say I want to change, gosh, what was it? Static. A lot of people wanted static to be
A
There it
different
is.
color.
symbol static. Yeah, like a bold or something like that. And for a while, we actually were testing out making static bold, and it was about 50-50. So we couldn't turn it on by default. Some people loved it and other people hated it. But then I wanted to like demo how it happened, and I always had to search for like 10 years in this list to find it because I would forget that it had like symbol first.
Yeah, so the comments are that, right, searching through the display items box, that's kind of tricky. But the font selection, you can't actually start type ahead font. Because
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
people, Richard, I have people on my stream that want to change my font to Papyrus.
Of course you do. No, they could have said Comic Sans.
They do that too.
Oh.
Yeah.
I now have the Walt Disney font, signature font, installed in my Visual Studio because
Oh,
that's a thing.
no. Make the bad man stop. Oh my
But,
goodness.
right, there's no,
They want to change it to
Papyrus stop. Look at that.
I can't tell you how many times I get requests for, yes, oh yes.
Your code was hieroglyphics. Now it really.
All right. Wait, how do I try this out? I'm scared.
Yeah, so just say okay.
I'm so scared.
No,
Oh,
it's
gosh.
just fine. Chat room, if you've seen my channel, you know this is a thing.
I've never done this before in my life.
Kendra,
Sorry.
they've
Yeah.
opened a bug to get Wingdings working in Visual Studio.
Can you imagine?
Excellent.
Please make the
Oh
bad
my
man
gosh.
stop.
I love
Yes.
the internet, man.
I-
So
Yeah.
crazy.
And Chris Jones here, yes, this happened just about an hour ago. They got me to install a peanut font theme, so all the fonts look like peanuts. And I was coding with that for 15 minutes today while dressed as a squirrel.
Yes.
Oh my God. And the previous.
Oh, look
Guys,
at
I've
you.
computered too much already today. Look, you can convert a for each.
Look, as soon as
That's
the line get any length at all, like, how do you read this?
So what I've done to make it more readable is there is a bold switch in the text, the font dialog. So that helps, and then I bump up the font size, and it at least 4 more points, and it becomes more readable. It's not great,
No.
but it's better
Because it doesn't highlight properly, right? You can't box it properly. Like,
because it's all different size characters.
Oh my gosh, even the project file. Sorry.
Yes, yes, right?
as soon as you have a block of uppercase like Microsoft.net.
Yes.
Oh,
Marcus points out, after a while, your brain does start understanding it.
yeah.
And you want to delay your project by years like James Cameron does every time he says, "Oh yeah, I've got a new version, a new Avatar movie coming out in 8 years."
Yeah, someday. Maybe.
Oh my gosh.
This is costing brain cells here.
Now I'm just like clicking around like this is amazing. So like the quick info and stuff, that font doesn't change, and the font of our
What?
It's like of our menu commands and stuff.
What?
I'm not going to taunt you with the unicorn font. Oh?
That's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Do I need to supply you with the unicorn font? Chat, anybody in chat remember where we got the unicorn font from? Because that was a thing. Let me make sure I have the right name.
And it'll appear?
No, we had to install it custom.
Well,
oh yeah, and it appears.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's bad.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get.
This is bananas.
Well, no, this is how I don't get anything done on a Friday. That's what this is.
Oh,
yes.
For sure. Sorry.
This is nice.
I have like other like this is great. I guess I spent so much of my day talking about like the truly new features, like non-nullable and everything, but now I'm just like running through my demo with this funny font, and it's so great.
Here we go. Unicorns are awesome. There it is. This is the font. I'm going to drop a link here in Skype chat for you. If you feel moved, I've installed that font.
Jeez, how does this work?
Click the little chat
Sorry
box.
for the infinite.
Whoa, I'm going to come over here. So, yes, unicorns are awesome, and this is a thing, right? This is how you could be much more productive as a developer.
This is so cool.
You will never look at fonts the same way again, Kendra.
I'm not
sorry.
going to be productive today.
Our chat has broken Visual Studio.
Man, this is why I got into computers.
Yes,
that's the fun stuff that we do.
But
yeah, right. I've got to credit a fellow streamer by the name of Fairy Wings who redeemed and had me use that in Visual Studio.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
I am so sorry.
I'm so happy. I'm not sorry. So cool.
I love it.
Oh, that's right. I turned off CodeLens.
So okay, all right. Well, CodeLens doesn't get the font.
I was just thinking about because this is a test method, and usually it'll load like a test.
So right, the tests all look funny. Yeah.
It lists the test names.
Yeah.
Oh, right, because the Test Explorer. Oh, I thought the whole Test Explorer would be like this, but I know that this one will be because it inherits. Yeah. Sorry.
There you go. Look at that.
Cool.
And Richard, folks are always looking for more crazier fonts to taunt me with here on stream.
Well, the peanut font clearly was a hit.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I still have that sitting here in my downloads. So yeah, that was definitely a thing. But yeah, right. I think it's amazing how we're kind of we're watching Kendra's thinking here as she's going through all these different screens and seeing where is the font applied in the various code tools. Very interesting.
Because you just set the font to the plain text.
Yes.
Did you just see what's inheriting from where?
It can't.
I think we broke Kendra.
You're not going to try the unicorns font?
Oh, so I just install
So you
it?
can download it, right? There's a download button up there.
All right.
Now you have to restart Visual Studio because you put a new font down.
Can do.
Now, I'm a big fan of Cascadia Code. That's been my go-to font. But I've had some friends suggest that I also should try the new JetBrains font. They have a very code-focused font. So I installed the TTF, the second one. Yeah.
Okay. Do you? Oh wait. Sorry,
Yep,
I just
double...
closed down. Just...
No, you need to close it. So you double-click it to install it, right? There it is.
Oh.
Oh yeah, look at this. Somebody drop Fairy Wings a message and let her know that we have the Visual Studio folks actually looking at this now.
So, and it just loads into the. I've never actually installed a font in
Now
Visual
just
Studio.
run Visual Studio and you can choose it in the box.
Yeah, it'll be there.
Nope, you don't even need to install. It's there.
I like the swoopy.
Easy sentiment analysis.
So, but
Is this what? Yeah.
No, please.
I was just gonna ask: Is this what you all wanted in this live stream? Should I show other stuff?
This is a digression.
If you want me to show other things or like my regular stuff. Sorry. So this. Oh, I launched the different. I'll just use this one. Okay.
So now you can try the fonts.
I swear, like, Scott Hunter's gonna call me up and need like an important call about something, and I'm gonna rope in like the wrong Visual Studio version, and he's gonna be like, "What the heck, Kendra?
Yeah.
What are you doing?"
Yeah. Now there are licensing around some of these fonts that you need to be aware of, but for the purposes of having some fun here and just showing this briefly. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Here we go. Oh no.
Yep, zoom in on that. Oh, it's gloriously.
Wow.
I've never seen Dustin Campbell's name written that way before, and it's glorious.
I think you should only write his name this way. Oh my gosh.
Right?
There's a reason I have his name in the quote. It's because this whole app is like my popular tweeters app. And so I was creating a power tweeter class. Dustin Campbell tweets about all of these topics. And this is how I show off like ranges and indices.
Nice.
So those are C#8 features, right?
Yeah. So usually like hat one, this little, it's so weird to be demoing in this font, but like the caret one is the Indices Operator, and it's a new way of showing an indices. So usually it's like, sorry, my my spaces are messed up, but so usually like if you have an array, the first item in the array is 0, the second is 1, and all of that. With indices, it actually starts from the end backwards. So you have hat 1 is the last item in the array. So it's the equivalent to. Sorry, I'm like laughing. I'm not sure if I'll actually be able to type anything anymore. Favorite topics -1. Oops, sorry. Link. So usually you have to write this whole line. Look at all that cursive.
Oh
Isn't it
yeah.
amazing?
And now you can write that same line with just hat 1, which is pretty cool. And you might see I have little two dots. That's a little code fix and suggestion. So if I hit Control dot and open that light bulb, it's suggesting. Sorry, it's suggesting that I use the index operator. Giving this demo with like a straight face is so fun. Sorry. It's suggesting that I use the index operator, and I can even like bump up that severity. So that's 0056. Ooh, sorry, we're trying to fix that. So I could bump it up to like a warning if I really wanted. Oh no. Oh wait, no. Sorry. Sometimes that's this failed message, but that time it was just we recommend using FX Copy Analyzer's message. Anyway, you can bump up that severity to a warning, so now it's a green squiggle.
Nice.
Was the font of the green squiggle also changed? Is it
I think
like
it might
more
have.
squiggly? Hold on. I gotta really.
The line numbers was.
It just looks more joyful. Oh my gosh, the eye is a star. If any of you were wondering what I actually do in my job, it's this. I just find funny stuff and laugh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, this is amazing. So anyway, you can
So, but
really opinionate your
Periods are also stars.
Sorry. Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
This is the best font ever.
well, I scrolled too far. Sorry.
So, but you set that now for the analyzer. Does that also get enforced when I .NET build or when Azure DevOps compiles my code?
Yeah, so I could actually even, sorry. I could promote this to an error. So we want to do severity error, right? So now I'm getting a red squiggle, and it'll operate just like any other error. So I'll actually see it in my error list.
Right.
And then if I try to build, it'll fail.
Yeah.
And that'll also fail on the command line and in Azure DevOps.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Oh, it's so powerful. So we're working on getting, actually, I think this is specifically a C#. Yeah, you can set. Yeah, that's right, because it inherits from editor config. Yeah, so anything in editor config, since it is outside of Visual Studio, it's not like you set the severity in one of like the code style options of that dialog that I showed. It's actually now set in editor config. And since that is actually present, sorry.
It looks amazing. It's so happy
It's
code.
so good. Anyway, so it is present somewhere in this file. Looks like.
Oh.
So press the error.
In the chat room, Parathon says that looked like it succeeded in building. Is that another bug? Oh no, I think you corrected it that time. Like I think you did the hot fix, right? The quick fix on it.
I actually
on
think
the the hat index.
Maybe it was. Oh gosh, where was I? Oh, it's just in a test. But the test project probably should fail. Stay up to date. I'm actually thinking because this is particularly a C# compiler error. Like, first off, this is a really new fix, so maybe we don't have it fully piped through.
Right.
Usually I show the fxcop analyzer breaking the build. So if we went back to
oh man.
Like the alert class, or who's getting that fxcop suggestion to load add serializable, and if I configured that to be an error, and then I did a build.
There you go.
Yeah, there it's breaking.
It's breaking, then it actually failed. So that's interesting. Yeah, there are different classifications of errors, and C#, especially nullable because it is a C#8 feature, might not be fully piped through. It's a code style anyway. You don't actually want to fit in. Anyway, so analyzers can break your build, especially from the command line. One cool thing also, while I'm here.
While you're looking that up, the monkey chimed in with Unicorn Font, the cure for programmer rage.
How can you be angry?
Totally.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
So something I just did there, in this new property page, you also have two options. So this is specifically one of the fxcop analyzers on that serializable, add serializable attribute message I was getting. I promoted it to an error, but I can trigger it to only run on build and not on live analysis if I wanted like it to be applied in different levels. So if I go to my alert class, you can see I'm not actually getting an error there, but if I still try to build it, it will still fail.
Right.
Because it runs it later.
Pretty cool.
All right. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, so you can really customize when you get issues. So you could also run on live analysis, but not run on build. So that means I will, if I save it, actually, this is probably basically the state of that C# issue right now. So I'm getting an error in my editor, but when I build, I'm actually fine. Which is interesting. Different customizability.
It's all about making the tools work for you the way that makes you happy.
Definitely.
Our friends in chat think the curly braces are too curly.
They're like little squiggles.
Elliot Brand
Okay.
with the compliment here. Look at this. Elliot Brand says that's a real developer there. She's flying through this code that looks like it's in a foreign language with ease. That's not a foreign language. That's unicorn font.
Yeah.
I actually speak unicorn. It's one of my many.
Look at that. One of many talents for Kendra has there.
Yeah. Actually, one thing I wanted to show off because it was also cracking me up. So this is the range operator, which is usually 2 dots, but right now it's 2 little stars, which is like saying I want to print. So I'm printing, and I'm printing the top 3 favorites in the array. So this is iterating through the array, and this is like saying going up to the 3rd element in this array.
Okay.
So it's going to print these first 3 things.
Right.
And stop before it gets to 3.
Right.
Which is fun. But it's, in star form.
Stars.
Sorry, I'm trying not to be that one person who just laughs uncontrollably at their own joke for 10 minutes, but
It's pretty funny.
when you spring this on me, when you spring these fonts on me, the tools that I use all the time, what can I do? So this is combining the 2. This is combining the range and indices operator. So this is saying I'm going to go up to the last item in the array. So it's going to print the same exact thing. So it goes up to here and then stops before it gets to hat 1, last indices. And that looks like I opened it a little bit earlier, but if we go ahead and run that, we can see how it prints out.
Even the rerun test font was in, oh my goodness.
Really? Wait, where? Okay.
Cool. Right?
I love that the duration is 2. I'm dying. Okay. So,
right. So you get the same 2 different ways to confine that list.
yeah. So this is up to 3. So it's printing the top 3 favorites. And this is up to the last item, which happens to be the same thing. So this is the first 3 things in the array.
Very cool.
Nice. Yeah. C#8 operators.
So now I have a challenge every time that I visit Redmond. I need to bring a more interesting and fun font for Kendra to use in Visual Studio.
No, Jeff, I won't be able to work. I won't get anything done. Please have mercy.
Very cool. Well, I think that brings us to about,
That's about time.
that was the full hour together. My goodness. Thank you, Kendra.
That's all, folks. Let's see, how do I stop my screen share?
Cool things you can do with fonts. Cool things to configure how Visual Studio is checking your code, enforcing style, helping you make better decisions. Tremendous set of features that are in there, and there's more always coming, right?
Yeah, definitely. Some really big stuff coming up. Still in productivity, we're always adding more fixes and refactoring, especially when people request them on our repository. And really big things coming to Visual Studio in general, like Visual Studio Online environments. You can already try those out in a private preview with VS Code. Lots of stuff to look forward to.
It had pushed feedback to you. I mean, besides being here on the live stream,
Absolutely.
What's the team usually uses?
So there's a developer community, and also, I just stopped sharing my screen, but there's a little feedback button in Visual Studio. It's the send feedback tool. It sounds impersonal, but literally me and Mika, every week. And Philip and, an assortment of other PMs too, but
it
don't
really
be a stranger.
It's not thrown off into some unicorn bin somewhere. It goes straight to you.
Straight to, yeah. I really like the ones that are written like letters. It's just so sweet. They're filing feedback, but it says Dear Microsoft, big fan of the tool, but, and then those are my favorite. There's always at least one every week, and I'm like,
at least
I love these customers.
Yeah. I'm sure you get a few ragey ones too.
Yeah, it happens. But I'm glad they're taking it out of Visual Studio. We can absorb and hopefully do better.
Oh, yeah, you did a little minute analysis there and just modified the font, maybe less rage.
There you go. I'll comment that in my next ticket.
You're Right? You seem very upset. Here's a font that will calm you.
I don't think I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah.
I feel like Sean Iron, the people on the Visual Studio feedback community will be like, Kendra, you can't just tell them to fonts don't solve all their problems. We can't respond to customers like that.
Fonts can make the world a better place. There's no two ways about it.
We can.
We learned a lot today. Very cool.
We did.
I could just do it. I have the power. And wait till someone tells me no. This is the moral dilemma.
I saw that moment in her eyes. Like,
guys, this is so dangerous. I'm going to go do suggestion triage right after this. So.
And put the suggestions in unicorn font so that you're nice and calm reading through.
Oh,
Dear Kendra, we really hate the state of the Snippets manager. Can you help us out? Smiley face star unicorn.
Yes.
yes.
Well, thank you so much. This was great, Kendra. We really appreciate you joining us today. And
yeah, thank you so much for having me and teaching me about fonts.
And you're going to be speaking with Leslie at the event in Orlando coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So
yes, I've already booked my tickets.
Oh,
it's good. Duet. I'm looking forward to it. It should be crazy.
Me too. I think I'll also have a little bit in Kathleen's Make Me a Better C# developer workshop.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to that. I've never actually sat in on her workshop, and
it's amazing.
She's already taught me some things that scare me.
The way
they have to do with primitive types.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
that's all I'll say here.
Got to sign up for that workshop to hear more.
Sure.
Very cool. All right, Kendra, you take care.
Thank you.
So you had another meeting lined up. We'll let you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. And there we go. Oh my gosh. So much fun talking to her. To drop into the giggles there with all the cool stuff going on with Visual Studio.
I don't think I'm going to just blame you for that one. That was,
Do you want me to put the squirrel head back on? I can put it on. It's right here.
I can't believe you didn't wear the squirrel head for Kendra. Like, she missed out on that. She already had the giggles. The unicorn and the squirrel head.
I didn't want to scare her.
Yeah, it scared me. Not a bit.
It's a thing. It's a thing. Yeah. My gosh, I've spent all day now in a squirrel costume here. I just didn't inflate the tail, but so.
Yeah, that's not a line I'm used to hearing. I didn't inflate my tail.
No, I guess not. Squirrel font and unicorn font, yeah, that could have been a thing.
I thought we got a little crazy in the stream, last fall when it was Halloween and we were all in costume. I don't know what to tell you now. It's Valentine's Day, so you wore a squirrel costume.
It's Dee Dee. It's Dee Dee's fault. I blame Dee Dee.
Oh, I get that.
And there was a point that Mrs. Fritz came walking into the office, saw me sitting here dressed as a squirrel, just turned around and went the other way.
And I married him. Right?
I'm stuck with this.
Well, by the way, it's also the week of my 25th wedding anniversary.
Oh, congratulations!
Kind of made a week out of the thing, so it's been a lot of fun. So we'll go out tonight as well. It's sort of the end of it. But my actual anniversary is on the 11th, so it's hard to remember, right?
Yeah.
You can't just get flowers twice. That's not good enough. You got to be a little more creative than that.
Yes, a lot more creative than that. I've got the same problem with May.
Yeah.
Mother's Day, wife's birthday, anniversary.
Anniversary, all in May?
All in May.
That's just poor planning on your part. Man, what's up with that?
You know what? I'm going to tell her you need to move your birthday. I know you were born on this day, but now you're born in June.
You can get divorced and remarried in a different month. How about that?
That's just wrong.
Yeah, that's pretty wrong.
That's wrong. We've had so much fun here today. We've got another one of these coming up next week. Several more coming up next week.
Yeah, we planned on this is the third of 8 streams in February.
Yeah.
So, still messing with the schedule a little bit, deconflicting some things. I think Kendra mentioned sort of casually there that Visual Studio for Mac Day on the 24th.
Yes.
That you're somehow involved in as well?
Yeah, they invited me to help host a little bit of it, and we're going to be running a code party at the end of the day there for folks on stream to be able to participate, talk to some of the speakers, and maybe even win a prize or two.
And so yeah, we moved the streaming off of that day onto another day. I'm really excited some of the streams that are coming up here. Actually, I'm excited about all of them. Like, talking to Brady's going to be a riot. Clara Vieira, who I've never spoken to before, she's new to the conference as well, coming from Brazil. But I've seen her stuff around explainable AI, and I have questions. I really these machine learning models, these neural net models, are awesome when they do what you want them to do. But when they don't, and there's just no way to understand why it didn't, it's an interesting problem to actually figure that out. So I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with her and maybe some demonstrations of what she means about explainable AI. Like that is a big movement in this industry.
Yeah, I'm just a newbie coming in on AI and some of the machine learning things. So I'm always interested to hear more from those folks that are on the bleeding edge, that are leading thinking in some of this stuff, and what we can learn and make it. I want to make artificial intelligence, the machine learning things, as easy as ADO was, and how I can just query and say, go do this thing, and I don't care what you're doing over there. It's the database. Well, it's the AI model. Tell me what the result is.
Yeah, for discovering value in data, I think, is a really interesting idea. But, we sort of danced around this with Visual Studio Online. As that data becomes available, as we have compute resources available to look at the code and how we write it, I have to wonder if we're not going to be able to build learning models that just amplify us, that allow us to do more in less time with code, just because the machines get better and better at anticipating what we need to do.
And generate a little bit of code at that point.
Yeah. Do you think, the fact that we need snippets, that we have this essentially plumbing, that generate, that we're trying to, have as few as keystrokes possible to get there, it makes me think more broadly about the patterns and techniques in code that more sophisticated automation could do something with. That more and more will just be the wizards with the vision rather than the keyboardists. Like, less typing, more thinking, more creating.
Not have to spend as much time being concerned about syntax and how to actually assemble the pieces of code.
Well, and imagine anticipating logic conflicts, right? You get there yourself, or recognizing repeating patterns before you do.
Kendra mentioned that a little bit about
repeated. Like this, could we package that up like that? In theory, when you have it all in your head, you can do that. But we're so often picking up and putting down code. Like, better to have a tool that monitors that sense of the nature of code. And I get to do the old guy keynote talks now, like software development in the 2020s, and I'm watching, right? It's like how the same way that we're using these machine learning models to amplify other work, is development work going to be affected by it too? I think it's inevitable, and we're seeing the pieces being put together that will enable that.
Yeah, it's coming. It's
Absolutely.
Definitely coming. Recognizing patterns of anti-patterns, says Trent in the chat room. That's another great way to describe it.
Catching you early in a path of risk, right? It's like, hey, this is kind of a tricky way to go. The same sort of effect you have with a good pair programming or a good code review.
Are you suggesting we could codify Barry Dorans?
Well, I mean, if you just got a bat with some hate attached to it and whacked yourself in the head with it, that's Barry Dorans, right? Like, did I say that out loud? That's not right.
That's not right. That's not right. Oh, my goodness.
Security people are angry for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's angrier than most.
Just ask him about secure string, friends. Ask him about secure strings.
You make sure you have some time and maybe some popcorn, because it's gonna go for a while.
It'll be fun. Gosh, that's pretty much a show, isn't it, Richard?
That's a show, my friend. And happy Friday, happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
All of that's to you and yours,
and to you as well, and to your bride there on a 25th anniversary. We'll be back on Tuesday, friends. Elijah Manor is joining us on Tuesday.
I like his thinking around web development. Talk about a practical guy, because he writes so much code. He's working on problems every day out in the world, and so he just is a touchstone for me about how are you productive, what do you need to do now. He's not always into the new and shiny. He's
But
into that.
practical.
What delivers features to my customers?
Yeah.
He makes me smarter every time we talk to him.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, friends. We will see you back here on Tuesday. Make sure you click that follow button up at the top of the screen. And if you're watching us on YouTube or on the recording, head on over to twitch.tv/DevIntersection. Click the follow button so you know next time we're coming on. You're going to find us right about this same time, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. You'll find us over here for every other day for the rest of the month of February, interviewing some of the great folks you'll find at the Dev Intersection show in Orlando coming up in April.
Yep, the week of April 6th, 2 days of pre-con, 3 days of main conference, 1 day of post-con. You know, Kendra mentioned Kathleen Dollard's I Will Make You a Better C# Programmer. That's one of the post-cons. She definitely will.
Yeah.
She, you know, those folks from the C# team, they'll really help you do more with it. And the conference is fun. It's a lot to do. We're right on the Disney property. We're there at the Swan. I think there's a few rooms left, but don't worry. There's overflow hotels and buses. We'll get you there every day.
Fantastic. All right, friends. We'll see you on Tuesday. Take care.